these and more, where my co-host Lexing and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discussed today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. And to our loyal listeners, welcome back. We ask that you please help us get the word out about this podcast to other enthusiasts. And of course, tune in again next week. We are the definitive voice for China EV Inc. My name is Tu Li, and I am the managing director at Sino Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. Lei, 2 weeks from returning to the Middle Kingdom, Lei, can you please introduce yourself?
And good morning to a 1 week before returning to the Middle Kingdom too. This is your co-host Lexing, former chief editor of China Auto Review, and this is episode number 161. So the last week or so on this side of the world, we had a snowstorm, we had an earthquake, and we had the solar eclipse.
That was such a cool thing, man. You know, every 20 years, right?
Yeah, it was also you could see on your side of the woods as well, or no?
Oh, it's the whole world could see it.
Oh, yeah, well, in this part of the world. So this is the last episode, speaking of this side of the world, where we will be recording on this side of the world before we head to China. You next week and me the following week. And speaking of earthquake, one of the bigger earthquakes that happened in the industry was the supposedly cancellation, no mas, of the Model 2 or Q.
How would you say that in Chinese appropriately? No mas, 没有, just say 没有.
歇菜.
歇菜, okay.
歇菜, which means you forget about it.
Yeah, okay, Because I was wondering if there's like a slang, and I guess it's 歇菜. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So we start off there.
I still think I'm not the native Chinese speaker, Lei, but I still think mayo is still pretty good.
Yeah, mayo is the normal, is the, I don't have it.
Yes.
It's not happening. But 歇菜 is more colloquial.
Right.
So,
okay.
So you have mentioned in your newsletter, you talked about some of the points on this. It's not definitive what's happening, but at least we've seen some tweets from Elon. It's adding more mystery to it. So maybe you can start off. First of all, give us a little bit background on the Reuters article and the what ensued.
So I'll just be frank and honest. Nori, who's a senior journalist, very well respected. You know Nori.
Yes.
And he's been everywhere. He's lived in Detroit. He's lived in
Beijing.
Japan. He's lived in Beijing, covered automotive for his whole career. He's one of the, and the Reuters team is a pretty well-respected automotive journalist team. Joe White, Paul Leinert just left, but he was there. So a lot of people, Brenda from Shanghai, Brenda Go. And the minute after I read it, I texted Nori because he's now living in Austin. And and I think that a lot of journalists, because other journalists, non-Reuters journalists, were kind of jealous that Reuters got this scoop. And so they were scrutinizing it to the level of, oh, that's not canceled, blah, blah, blah. And to me, it's a little bit about semantics. And so I think cancel was a word that their sources used. It's not a word that they just pulled out of thin air. So I want to kind of articulate that small little detail that makes a lot of difference, because it's a bunch of shades of gray, and we know that there's a bit of inconsistency with what Elon says and what actually happens now. And you and I know, because we've been in the automotive space for so long, and if you just listen to Mary, if you just listen to Tavares, they can change their minds within a 6-9 month period. So it's definitely not forever. But to get down to the substance of the what I'd written in the newsletter about the whys. We kind of talked about this last week, I think.
Yeah.
But effectively, there are plenty of $25,000-$30,000 great vehicles in the China market. Clean energy, whether it's a hybrid, whether it's a BEV, because I think they're competing against each other for Chinese consumers. And so for Tesla to come out in 2026, I think it would have a chance if it came out late this year, early next, to get hundreds of thousands of units of sales over a couple year period. But 2026, holy cow, all the brands that survive this price war are going to be super strong. Their product portfolio is going to be whittled down to the products that are going to sell. Now, their future roadmap might be different and evolve, but you and I know, or at least I don't want to make assumptions, Lei, but the players that survive, that come out of this price war, are going to be super duper tough. So what do you think?
Well,
did you agree with everything I wrote? What would you add to it?
Yeah, well, so same here, mostly. I think I also texted Nori and I told him your article blew up the internet.
Yeah.
And he's like, haha. But here's what Elon said, right? 2 tweets. One, he said Reuters lying again. And pretty soon after, he said Robotaxi
8/8
reveal August 8th. And he chose a quite auspicious date in Chinese culture. So it's almost like Elon is denying it, but at the same time confirming the article, which the other half of the article was talking about the cancellation of the 2 or Q, but rather focusing on the Robotaxi part of it, right? And we've seen the recent rollout of the FSD supervised trial, right, on the existing vehicle. So, and I saw not a tweet, but moments from our good friend who we interviewed, Wu Gansha, and he said from his experience, he's the AV startup, founder of AV startup UIC. He said the 2 and the Robotaxi looks to be the same thing.
Yes.
And I think that's a lot of people are thinking that as well, because we've seen that picture, right? In that in the biography of Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson, of that kind of the wing door, 2-door kind of the shaped 2 or Q, which could also be the Robotaxi. So that's the interesting part of, what this upcoming Robotaxi that they will reveal, what is the relationship of that to the existing fleet of Tesla vehicles. I think that's the interesting part. And I still think the 2 and the Q is coming, because recently the Franz, I think he said, just wait, right? He said publicly, So I wouldn't say it's no mas, but clearly I think with lack of communication on the 2Q, the play is in fact going toward the Robotaxi side of things. So that's my take.
Another distinction: the Robotaxi could be the Model 2, but the Robotaxi is not likely going to have a steering wheel, accelerator pedal. So, or at least it won't be part of the foundational design. I think those are kind of some of the major differences potentially with what we might see on 8.8 versus what we're thinking about now. But, this is the craziness. Again, the Model 2 could be extremely successful in Europe and the United States at a 2026 launch. I don't know how successful it's going to be for a 2026 launch in China. And that's where, because remember, Anyo is going to be out, Firefly is going to be out. So there are more mass market so more mass market vehicles that are coming out. So
yeah, so also the Robotaxi itself, I mean, whenever Elon says something, you take it with a grain of salt, right? So the reveal is something, but actually utilizing their fleet or putting this into mass operation or application, now that's years out, given the track record of Cybertruck, given the track record of, okay, the end of this year, we're going to have, right? He keeps saying that for many years, that this is happening by the end of the year. And then next year, he says, right?
The one thing that's super interesting also, Lei, is kind of these threads that shoot off of these immediate big news cycles or these news drops. And in order to collect the data that it needs, in order to, the data centers and all these other capital investments, in order to have a successful point-to-point level 4 robotaxi, we're talking billions and billions of dollars investment each year. I think I saw a tweet where somebody estimated $10 billion this year of investment. And Elon kind of said, yeah, so it's not this, I'm going to collect a bunch of data and I win. It's a lot more complicated than that.
And that tweet yesterday by that guy who used FSD to take himself to the hospital, and then the official Tesla Twitter account retweeted that just opened up a whole huge can of worms. Like, it's driving people crazy because, that it saved that guy's life, but should that be encouraged when you should be calling an ambulance, right? Like, this is like...
It put so many other people's lives at risk.
Yeah, so it's just driving more debate. I think it's going to drive more debate.
I don't know how they get away with it in the U.S. market.
Yeah.
Because... So there was another article, a follow-up article about how, and this was from Nori again, about how robotaxis is still a bit away and Tesla's not out of the woods. And one of the biggest advocates for safety and regulation with regards to what Tesla is doing with FSD in the United States, at least, is one of the professors at Carnegie Mellon. And he's like, in order for robotaxi company to be really, truly, completely validated, or, for the most part, we're talking no accidents for a year or two. So think about that, because good enough is not good enough if you're a robotaxi company.
And look at what happened to Cruise, right? They restarted operations with manual drivers, with human drivers collecting data. That just seemed like a huge step backward before you can move ahead for someone who's already had that experience, who we've experienced 2 years ago.
Yeah. It is just, everybody plays by a different set of rules. And I don't know. So there was a comment just now, but I don't think we are saying that Tesla solved autonomy. I think that's clear that we're saying that they have not.
Yeah. So basically my assessment back to the Model 2 topic is that it's not 100% NOMAS. It's not NOMAS. It's not dead. It's not officially communicated. So my beliefs that it's still happening in China as well. And you have mentioned about that 20 million target, and I kind of said on LinkedIn, I said maybe that's off the table. Maybe, I don't know if that's still a good the target that they have on their boilerplate. Then what do you do, right? So
I don't know either. I just look at it like, this is what he says. So I'm going to, unless I can definitively point to something that disputes what he says, then that's all I have to go off of, to be quite frank.
I mean, my expectation is flat. So if they do a 1.8 million, that's awesome. I don't expect growth, to be honest, given the current environment.
I think they've sold as many 3s and Ys as they can in the California market. And so the US market is their largest market. China is their second largest market. And Europe, with the slowdown and the increased adoption of hybrids, now they actually have competitors. But I think in Europe, at least, the price cutting lever is still something that can work in Europe for a little bit. But, also you're just really upsetting current owners if you continue to cut prices, because it just, they don't care about residuals. I get that, but you can't just keep on cutting price, can you? I guess you can, but
they had a low number for the first week of April, but let's see, whether that 0%, 0% financing or whatever that they launched, see if it's effective once the April numbers are out, and then how low can you go, right?
I would
we
also
move
say,
into
Lei, that at least that last week of sales, it was a 1-to-1 almost. The people that might have bought a Tesla have put deposits down on an SU7.
yeah, yeah. It's only 1 week's number, but it's a holiday week. So, but some of the numbers we've seen and I've tweeted are, these premium brands, big drops Q1. Part of it is due to the seasonality. Part of it is due to their own specific issues, competition, Porsche, right? Mercedes, BMW, they're all down in Q1.
Let me stop you there.
Yeah, yeah.
Porsche sales overall grew because of Europe and the United States last year. With, you said 12, I read it as 15, but let's say between 12 and 15% sales loss in the China market.
Yeah, double digits.
So despite the sales losses in China, Europe and the United States made up for it. What we're seeing in Q1 is that they're continuing to lose sales in China, and it's affecting global sales. So the overall sales in Q1 went down globally, and it was because China is still losing share. And so I tweeted, and you saw that the value over volume is what the CFO had mentioned. And this is not by their choice. This is just a ultra competitive market that's starting to creep into the premium space. Okay.
Yeah, and obviously there's logistics disruptions are part of the reasons. And I heard that like from Mercedes, the China PR people, they were saying that there were some parts shortage issues aside from the changeover of some of the models, but demand is a big factor. There's no question about it, and that's partially due to the competitive environment and partially due to the economy.
Yeah, for sure. I'll get a better handle on this. I think you and I will both get a better handle on how much we should weigh the economy's part versus, there's some other great cars that people are considering outside of the Porsche vehicles.
Yeah, like a SU7.
Yes, which is ironic because it's a $30,000 car, where the Porsche is probably, the Taycan is over $1 million, right? It's over $1 million RMB, right?
Million RMB, $2 million. The new Taycan Turbo GT is like $2 million RMB.
So we'd heard this. We, as in Lei and I, had heard that Porsche's moving up market, and so, but even then, they're going to start bleeding into the luxury, like true luxury, the Bentleys and the Rolls Royces, and so it's not going to be easy for them to peel customers from those brands either. And I think it's important. My last point about the Porsche stuff is that there is no brand loyalty when it comes to that with Porsche. In Europe and the United States, yes, Porsche is a very, 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 very entrenched heritage brand. It's not like that in China.
On the other side of the fence, I mean, one example of this, how low can you go, is XPeng G6. I think it's happening all over again. What happened to maybe the G9 and the P5? The G6 is already, I don't know, I think it's selling thousands of units a month, which is a failure. And they launched last June. It's less than a year. They've cut prices 3 times already.
What's important to remember here, Lei, is that if you see and we start to continue to see these products from the brands that we talk about on a consistent basis, we see in the thousands per month. The pressure to export and be successful becomes increasing, or it increases as more and more of these single 1,000 sales months build up.
Yeah. And you're seeing XPeng push out to Hong Kong, Macau, Spain, Portugal, additional markets, right? They just shipped 1,000 G9s recently.
Well, there's that article about a lot of vehicles
stuck
at the ports.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's the thing. One thing we hear these export numbers. Oh, by the way, according to the CAAM latest numbers, auto export, including everything, in the first quarter was a fifth of total sales, 20%. So there's one kind of a reference. And then there's another thing to see these registration numbers. in Europe, which are still infinitesimal. Few hundred.
There's a lag. There seems to be a lag.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I know that article talked about like what do they do when this process of exporting, delivering, logistics. Yeah. So I mean, it's all how you perceive and what perspective you have, right, on this threat.
Well, the clear volume exporters are Tesla and BYD. Okay.
Sure.
And Yellen was in China
Beijing,
last
China,
week,
yeah.
and she talked about overcapacity. I happened to be on a show with Bill Russo earlier this week, Lei. So,
Yeah.
and we had talked about the overcapacity issue is not on the EV side; it's on the battery side and it's on the ICE side, because SAIC is looking to reduce headcount. And remember, SAIC, GM is still struggling. Volkswagen is still struggling on the ICE side. And so you look at Russia, they're being force fed a lot of, there's a void. Let me pull back. I won't say force fed, but the void left by the foreign automakers that stopped selling in Russia is now being filled by Chinese brands.
Yeah, filling the hole.
And so that's one of the areas or one of the regions, one of the countries where the ICE exports are going. And there's likely a number of ICE exports going to MEA, Middle East, Africa, Latin America. We saw that big thing in We Suck or I Suck. We got to get our first video Max episode out, hopefully next week, where we talk about Mexico. So Mexico is a 1 million unit market, and there's no subsidies or incentives to buy clean energy vehicles. So in the near term, there's no risk of EV sales growing significantly in the Mexican market. But establishing a footprint in Latin America and South America is very important, because Latin America is the per capita income is growing. Clean energy via ethanol is the way to go in Brazil. And so we've seen Volkswagen, BYD, Great Wall all announce investments in Brazil. So Latin America is going to be a major area of opportunity and growth for China EV Inc. or China Auto Inc. But so keep an eye on Latin America as well.
What else? So speaking of right, there's this a good friend Alfonso reported that NIO is cutting
600
headcount again.
Yeah.
And then there's I just tweeted that we're getting close to the Beijing Auto Show, and from now on until the Beijing Auto Show itself, every single day there will be brand nights, there will be tech days, there will be new launches, there will be reveals. And today's the 12th, right? So we're a little bit less than 2 weeks out. It's going to be
spotlight
difficult to follow.
But for the next, let's say, starting on Monday, the next 2 weeks, spotlight on China for auto, because Shanghai will host the F1 next not
finally.
in 2 days, but the next Sunday in like 9 days.
I just saw some videos of the safety cars being shipped into Shanghai. So
nice. So Shanghai F1, and then starting Wednesday or Thursday. Thursday's media day for Beijing Auto, right?
Yeah. So for a company like Mercedes, I mean, bet their higher ups are going to be in China probably right now. They're probably heading over there and then stay until the end of the Beijing Auto Show or start of the Beijing Auto Show.
What normally happens, they come in, they meet with all the local management and kind of everybody gives an update, and then they start talking about the lead up to their brand night.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing, Lei, is that you and I hear about so many rumors on these types of events. And so getting there, talking to people, having a beer, having a pint with old friends, man, I'm smiling right now. I'm pretty excited to see.
Because you haven't gone back to Beijing since
last April.
Wait. Oh, right. You have, but right. Okay. Yeah. So it's been a year. Yeah. Okay.
And what's that distance or time or makes the heart grow fonder? So
Yeah.
all the warts that Beijing had when I lived there, I don't think about them anymore. But one thing that I was going to ping you about is now that I can use foreign credit cards, I want to learn how to figure all that stuff out. And I'm hoping that my Weixin,
You're a
Zhifubao,
pro by now. Come on.
I know. Well, no, I am, but
You-
like I haven't used these things in a year, so like getting them back working if they're not working is kind of going to be totally mafan, right? So,
yeah.
but
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Anyways, what's next?
we've covered the two topics on your on the title.
Yeah,
I mean, we can talk about the auto show, some of the new.
you had tweeted. Let's just kind of summarize some of the things that we're going to see. We're going to see the Macan EV. We're going
Well,
to see a couple.
they'll announce the China pricing of the e-Macan and the China debut, anyways.
Yeah, so it's not a global debut, but it
No,
is a China
it's
debut.
a China debut, right? And then for Neo, so we've heard that the refresh or facelift of the ET7. I can't believe that it's already happening again.
Oh my god!
I think that's one thing they'll do in Beijing. The other thing, I don't think they'll have a big presence as far as new launches because they're launching that Ambo in May, a separate event, which is a smart thing to do. I think they'll probably show the fourth gen battery swapping. They'll probably have a demo at the auto show because that's part of their next iteration of products. Anyways, XPeng is unveiling the Mona definitely before the auto show on one of those brand nights. The auto is revealing the L6 next week.
So for those wondering, Li Auto has the L7, L8, L9 E-Revs. The L6 is a 5-seat version.
Yeah, the small baby version of
that is supposed to start at under 41,000 US dollars. The E-Revs, these 7, 8, and 9 have been really successful and has gotten Li Auto to the consistent 25, 30,000 units a month volume sales. Now, Mega has been a bit controversial and disappointing in the first month and a half of being launched into the market. And so I don't know. You and I haven't figured out yet if that was a little sabotage or if there's some really fundamental flaws with that vehicle.
Well, the Mega wave or chatter has kind of died down already. So
one thing that I also want to mention is I think you and I are looking forward to seeing our KOL friends, our car review guys. Last year in Shanghai, we had the opportunity to sit down and break bread with the CNEV post, Jiao Wei. We didn't see Car News China. He didn't come to dinner, but we saw him at Munich. His name is Jiri. And Wheels Boy, we saw Ethan and had dinner with him. Will from China Driven. And Mark wasn't at dinner, right? For Inside China Auto. So Mark was not there, but we did see him, or I saw him in Shanghai. So we're all friends. I'll probably catch up, have a pint with Bill Russo. And so, yeah, there's a certain amount of respect that each of us has, especially because you and I don't really do the car review thing, Lay. So there's not like these sharp elbows, but that's going to be really cool because talking to those guys, getting the real opinions on some of the cars that they've driven, some of the experiences that they've had while traveling to review these cars. Some of those backstories are pretty funny, right? So,
yeah, I think it's going to be adventurous last third of April for me, if not for you and everyone else that's going to the auto show.
And you and I are going to be meeting first week in May in Shenzhen, right? Like we might go together, right? Wink, wink.
Hopefully, we'll talk to the Snow Bowl Capital guys.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to catch up, have some dinner.
Yeah,
we'll talk to Deep Route. I'm sure we'll talk to Deep Route. We will get a chance to ride in a Pony AI robotaxi that has a pilot down in Shenzhen. So, and hopefully we'll get to not review, but drive ourselves some of these cars that we've been talking about. So I want to check out. I want to drive the Mega. I want to drive the Mega, man.
Probably Su7 and Mega are at the top of the list of cars of wanting to drive.
Yeah. So I know the Car Wow guys are going to be in Beijing as well. I've been pinging Kevin Williams from Inside EVs because he was asking about a visa and all this stuff. So I think he's finally gotten his visa.
Yeah, I think I really am glad that you have these kind of, people, foreign press that are able to go and just say, I told them, be prepared to be shocked. Just, you write about it, you hear about it, but unless you're there, you can't really, it's hard to describe.
You know what's also good, Lei, is that these guys, and they're mostly guys, so that's why I'm saying guys, they are super knowledgeable and super curious. They're coming with an open mind because a lot of journalists think they know, but to your point, right? They come and they're like, whoa, this is crazy. And it's not just because of the cars and the green plates, but also just the level of advancement in Beijing, Shanghai, these tier 1 cities.
Speaking of that, one thing I'm looking forward to is re-experiencing the NOA, which is, I've driven the G6 last year, the L8, with some of the NOA features. Within a year, I want to see how much more advanced they've gotten. Urban scenarios, highway scenarios. That's something that you have to experience to really understand. It's a bit overkill, but that's where the competition is.
Yeah, and one thing that I will also mention is that there was an article, I think Polestar sales fell off a cliff last month or last quarter.
Yeah, Q1 jitters, right?
So, which emphasizes the importance of a successful 3 and 4 launch for them.
Yeah, I don't know about that,
but remember that the 3 is starting at 80,000,
73-ish, I think.
So that's not going to be a high runner for them. Obviously, they will definitely need a refresh on that too in order to stay competitive. They're already not competitive in the US and China with the 2. And so I don't know what their strategy is going to be moving forward. I think the not having a window on the 3 is a bit controversial. So, but I did want to emphasize that. Now, is there anything else?
Well, have a good trip.
Well, I'll catch you on DMs, man. I'll catch you on DMs. I don't leave until Tuesday, so
that's literally next day. That's right. Time flies, man.
Yeah, so I'm gonna spend all weekend packing, figure out what I actually want to bring, and because I'm gonna be in Beijing, Shanghai, and then Shenzhen, so almost 3 different climates. So
yeah, so the day I leave, I still have to first get to a volleyball tournament.
Oh yeah,
and then I have to head to the airport, and then it's gonna be. Remember, I did I got a free ticket basically with my knowledge. It's a 34-hour trip.
Oh God, dude! God bless you, dude. God bless you.
So I leave on the 20th, and I get in on the 22nd.
Oh my goodness! How many stops?
2. Chicago, San Francisco.
I only have Seoul, so I'm good.
Yeah. Well, Detroit, it's relatively easier. I guess.
So, hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We plan to have the podcast next week, the live show next week. So, technology permitting. But thanks for joining us again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
All right. Likewise. Bye-bye.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lee, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.